right. Got it. All right. Well, I thought I'd stop on the side of the road and do a roadside chat for a second. My impressions on Savage World game last night, the system, and a little bit of VR to Jason regarding the Dark Age of Man. As far as it being shifted over to a Savage World system setting. Not using the Savage World system. You know, my thoughts on that. But first, I like to say I really enjoyed the game last night. I mean, in part, a lot of it has to do with the competency of the DM, which Scott knows the system inside and out, right? So there's a lot less grinding of the gears and page flipping and whatnot. It can potentially happen if you know. I mean, it had happened to a certain degree with us because we were all kind of learning the game. Maybe if we had touched on with the game before in our past, you know, a lot of it had been lost. I think I played, like I asked Scott at the end of the game, like I remember playing like one session of Deadlands like 30 something years 32 years ago or something, you know, if recollection serves. And yeah, anyway, that was a progenitor of what you know was to follow with all these other settings and whatnot, and the changes in the systems that happened. And so I've had that game same way as Jason had, you know, for stuff to the side of it. The only thing I had ever did, you know, as far as the game booklet, it's been on my shelf for the longest. I had pilfered it for a little bit of the information out of one of the modules in the back to run a session, run a little one-shot adventure myself. But other than that, you know, I looked through it, and I have the same misgivings as far as like, or the same prejudices I could say about like bennies. The only thing I'd really seen bennies used for before that I liked. Robert uses them mid-piece, and I was fine with that. You know, because he's got an unusual system. Like if you watch Jason's video, his system is very like you roll for the points you get to allocate every time, so it changes. It's not like you're locked into what you can do, like so many AP points. It'll change, so you can apply them to various ways. Very ingenious the way he's got that system set up, and it's enjoyable. You know, it's unique in that respect. But he has bennies in there, and I know that there's bennies in Blood and Bone. I remember, and I like the way it did that, and the fact that you could be a commander and you could issue bennies out as far as like, you know, leading your men in certain ways, you know, to empower them. So that justifiably made sense to me, at least. I think a lot in my mind, it has to be justified to use it. You know, even I think with, it's funny with Deadlands, I remembered the card system back then. And I thought, well, just drawing cards to find out who goes in what order, it doesn't take any kind of, you know, concession about how your agility is, you know, in regards to who might go first or who, you know, might go last. And you can overthink these things because even, you know, I could have a high agility and still roll below it over somebody who has lesser agility and they're still going before me. Nothing's ever set in stone, even in my mind, where I think it's more warranted that you get more of an opportunity to go before the other guy goes, because it comes down to a die roll. You know, it could be not in your favor, but still it's something. So I look at the cards as gimmick, right? But that system has lasted for a long time and has been developed. And there's something about it that catches people's imagination, you know? And anytime you can watch us when we're playing the game, even though we'll say we don't like overly complex, you know, we don't necessarily, at least speaking for Jason and I, you know, it's what working on Dark Age of Man, we want to have something to where it doesn't stop the flow and immersion of the narrative progression. So you're rolling, but you can see us during that game, whenever it comes down to it, because all dice are narrative, you know, even in Dark Age of Man, we're, you know, it's prompting the narration by the rolls. Whenever a roll is called for, you know, you roll with it, and it informs the narrative, it informs the fiction. And that's all we're doing with it's a breakdown of you know, smaller independent and roles concerning the weaponry you're using, concerning your situation. Like when I'm on the boat trying to fire my Tommy with a clip in it, and the other thing, well, the boat's rocking, it's a -1, you know, which we do that in Dark Age of Man. make concessions to that, just intuitively for your situation. So, but I mean, Scott knows all of this, so he's doing it. There's rules in the book that you go by, and the type of weapon you have has certain damage rating on it. We all know this stuff, playing 100 years, right? That's why we hadn't played this game before, really legitimately. I think Jason ran it twice. It's been 30-something years since I played like I said, the initial game of it, and this so I thought it was unique. I thought the setting was unique, but I don't remember much about the session itself, right? But I have always, as an aside, I've always walked up and picked that book up and all the other books for the settings, and they're evocative, which I'll get back to that, when I delve into the little Dark Age of Man question. But when we're playing it, you can see we're all enthralled when I do ace it. Once I understood it, once you start playing it and fall into it, you readily will pause the narrative and find out, because what you're doing, what the system's doing, is empowering, in a way, the hopes and aspirations of the players to play in a manner that is pulpy heroic. So when I'm running, I got in my mindset of I'm playing oh Lord, I forgot his name, Savage. Last night I'm running, I hit the crocodile slide, right? I want to do it epic fashion, surf down that sucker with a Tommy gun, and then flip off and land and stick that landing like Mary Lou Retton and turn around and have my Tommy gun at the ready. So I got that in my mind. I want to play in that fashion, especially the character I am. So the system itself is really built for pulpy action, and you can be heroic, and if you do fall on your face, it might be a comic thing, or you do get accosted by the, if I'd land into an area right in the middle, if I'd have flubbed that roll or whatnot, landed in the middle, right where the natives were, and they would have grabbed my arms and held me back, then all of a sudden it would still be thematically pulp, and then I'm held at bay. It's funny what Jason was saying, that he was envisioning these graphic novels. To me, and I don't know, it reminded me of playing Fallout 4, and I was listening to the serials of the hero, Cavalier K, or I can't even remember his name, but they're the same old serials that you would hear. Well, not that probably any of us were alive during that time, but on the radio, like the Phantom and whatnot. All those pulp radio serials. So that's what it was really impressing upon me. That's how I had envisioned it, and so that's funny. But yeah, things like the Phantom and various other, the Spirit, that one movie with Frank Miller. Yeah, I believe he did the Spirit. And the Phantom, there was another one, not that Frank Miller did, but nevertheless, they're based off of those old, radio shows. But anyway, that's what I had in my mind, was kind of informing me as I was going forward. So I had that very, and for some reason, that one character played by the guy who played, you have to forgive me, I don't know actors' names right off the cuff, but the guy who played in Firefly is the captain. Can't recall his name, but he did this little movie with the Doogie Howser guy where he played the hero. Anyway, his character was kind of informing my concept of the character I was playing, right? And we can't help but pull from what we've experienced and what we know, and embody that into the character that we play in. Draw from it. So it was really fun. Everybody loves to let their hair down, and I can see why the system is so popular, because it comes down to fun. When you're playing a game like that, you're playing a pulpy action adventure, and everybody's got this maybe stereotypical, like David's playing the doc, and then Jason's playing the hanger on. Lois Lane type with the camera, I mean, even let's face it, Superman and all that back in the 20s, they were based off of those type characters. They're still informed from the pulp genre, which pulp was just the wood that I made the magazines out of. It was just cheap stories and kind of cliched and cheesy stories that would come out. But anyway, it's fun when it comes down to it. It's fun. Like Indiana Jones is still based off of that too, where all that source material comes from. So that's what we're tapping into. And I can see that system is really well built to emulate that. And a large part of the fun is you don't mind, at least I don't mind. I like to flow, with the narrative. Like me and Jason both will just roll. And you'll see me if you watch that game, have to stop myself. And I'll make different course corrections from just steamrolling with the narrative, because it still is interesting when I had to stop and say, let's roll and find out what happens here. Let's roll and find out how the dice inform what happens. And you get caught up wanting to, ace and double ace, and then say, oh, it's getting, higher. Now I can really expound upon what's happening here and the fiction narratively. And I just did something epic, And then you get your beanies, which isn't so bad. You just get to roll. The first time I was questioning about whether I wanted to use beanie, it's felt like half a minute. I'm sitting there going like, should I? Because I got ingrained in me, like, just let the dice fall where they may, and that's it. But I was missing the concept in a way that you roll, because what you're trying to do is empower these characters to play to their fullest. It's almost like, I wouldn't say a writer's room type thing, but you want to be these characters in a pulp fashion, to fill this story out. So it's like, even Jason said, "Oh, I'd love to take a picture in that. I could just see it happening, with the priestess cutting and kicking cutting the throat of the Nazi and Spartan kicking him off." And Scott's like, "You can beanie that, just throw a beanie in it. That's what you do. You cued off the narrative. You change it in a way that, like, I click it right before he goes. So we still have this awesome story, this pulp worthy in the end. It's a little bit, this to bring me down to what I was saying about Dark Age Man. Jason said he mentioned it, and my eyebrow probably went up like Spock, but I was thinking in my mind, I don't know if that would fit within the genre, because we've worked really hard I see the systems being compatible in certain ways. They give liberty to narrative expression and expression of character. Like Scott was saying, the rule of cool. And that's what essentially we're doing in Dark Age Man, right? We do it, we got liberty to explain what's going on and narrate what is going on. And we still, like Scott said in one of his characters, don't matter how, something happens, he can explain it like he wanted to. I had somebody that's distended their jaw, and then a horde of bees would come out and strike whoever that was, didn't really matter. It's up to your imagination. And I love that aspect of it. And it's still the same way. I mean, not necessarily, in that aspect. You're, in Dark Age Man, you still, the setting isn't pulpy per se, to that extent, to allow anything like that, beyond, just freewheeling. So the argument isn't about, the setting thing, but the point being that there is narrative liberty, and that's the focus of what you're doing it for, And like I was wondering myself if it would be too many exploding rolls, too many stops, and too many dice to factor in, and which one do I have to pick up now? And really, I don't know. Maybe it's just because, like Jason was saying, we've all been playing these games. Once you pick up the concept, oh, yeah, I got to roll this for that and whatever, and it's easier to pick up. I don't know necessarily how somebody new to the hobby would, gravitate toward it and roll. It didn't seem overly complex to me. Maybe there's things when you look through the book, going across the breadth of, several and, a multitude of genres that it's covering. And it covers that, in my mind, at least, I think, because it gives you narrative liberties, that it can do that, which is great. But I mean, you look those down the list of powers and down the list of everything, it gives you basic, stats that you could, understand readily and probably transpose them onto different abilities or powers or whatnot. I love the traits and hindrances, how it kind of key off to help role play and the beanies or whatever like that. And everybody, like, it was kind of cool. I would play without them in the first place, but in a way it's like Scooby Scooby treats. It does you another beanie or whatever, and everybody laughs because you're playing that character. And maybe it keeps a focal mind point toward playing a game like that where you do kind of rely on it. I didn't overly think about it. I was playing my character. The background, Jason was too, David was too. We were still playing character. That's why we role play. We love playing the characters and see where they go. And I was wondering how I'd react since playing Dark Age Man and in that style for so long. And if it would be a hard, 180 or a right turn for me to kind of stop and go back to more granular die roll system or whatever. And conceptually, I didn't really know how fluid it would run. This is literally the first full time I've played this game. Within memory, like I said, I can't even recall exactly how it went down first, other than the cards or whatnot that were in use. But it was great. It was great. It was it was a unique experience. Even stopping to roll the dice to find out, and everybody you roll and find out if you do ace it, then you're doubling up on things, and you say, "Wow, you just freaking." Killed it, and you lay out this epic little narrative of what happens. So I don't know. It was definitely unique. As far as unique and enjoyable. I would be, maybe there's some reluctance to say if somebody was like Jason says he's going to run it, or I was going to run it, or whatnot. I'm sure it would be fine, run fine. Would probably be funneling around a little bit trying to find rules, but like I said, they can transpose from one power to the other, and it's just it follows a basic similar formula as far as the best I understand. Now, I haven't really sat down and read the book anyway, but that's the impression I'm getting. So I'm literally talking out my rear end for a little bit here, but that's the impression I got from playing it. It wasn't overly complex, even though at first blush, when you're looking at the rule set, you're like, dang, there's a lot of powers. I remember this and that and the other. But I think you would kind of get the gist of it. It's just only different powers and names to cover a broad range of genres that you can delve into, But whether or not you're doing vehicles or, and I know the game leans more on miniatures too, which, truth be told, I can play easily Theater of Mind. I don't mind, like when I was going down the slide the other day in the game, and I needed to know if I had witnessed her Spartan kicking the Nazi off, and if I could see from my vantage point where she went into there, where he was kicking into the crocodiles. Did I see him thrashing around in the pool or what? Where was I at? So, as far as place markers, as far as like miniatures, if I was to sit down and play this game with others that were used to playing with miniatures, I don't know that it would really upset me all that much. Just move for points of reference. That way you wouldn't have to bring back and say, well, where's, like David had asked, where's these Nazis located again? If you have just a blank point of reference on there, you can kind of understand. But see, I don't have a tendency to look and concentrate and focus on miniatures and think from that and vision from that mind point. I'm thinking everything that is, I'm envisioning, like Jackson said, he's envisioning the, like a graphic novel on these little page, and he can see it happening. That I can too. That's where I like to, to stay in a mindset. So that would be where I would stay, using that. And I know that, or at least I've heard that a lot of people play the game. And I'm going on about this because Scott mentioned something about my area. They have I think, a con, and it's probably, I don't know if it's just specifically for Savage Worlds locally, so thinking about going there, but I was thinking that most people would be using miniatures at that point, but it wouldn't really, I don't think it would throw me all that much, because even with miniatures, I'm not geared toward thinking in that manner. You know what I mean? I'd probably glance at it as a reference point that would save me having to get, a verbal explanation. But then again, that's nothing that I've ever really struggled with to any degree where it made that much of a dent in the game that I was playing. So theater of the mind is kind of natural for me. But nevertheless, I think the game is good. The system really supports pulp, action, oriented play, epic play, and like I say, stopping to roll a dice. That's oddly satisfying when you got a group of people go down and you're seeing how how much you get, and then let's see what you do in this. You get to explain off this epic pulpy experience that you just laying out in front of the other players. This is what happens, and it's like Jason said, a panel on a graphic novel, or description on an old Tommy radio show, like I'm listening to it or envisioning or whatnot, but I can see it get out, and a lot of that is to keep it in the player's mind, the community mind's eye going down at the table, and that's a lot what we do with Dark Age of Man, is to keep that narrative rolling so everybody can keep it's a social experiment at a table to keep an ongoing, ever-present story evolving right in front of the mind's eye at the table. And that's what we do. That's what I say it has in common with Dark Age of Man. If we ever wanted to take that setting and transpose it over and use the rules or the system, but that's again the problem. I think they both support narrative. They both support narrative. The system, Dark Age of Man system, and the Savage Worlds system. All dice narrative anyway, but it supports the type of narrative that's feeding, what kind of story you want. It does it epically. When you stop and you're rolling, you're trying to ace these things, and you go, yes. Or if you fall on your face, so, and it does it by degrees of, success. So you're still stacking your successes, and how successful are you at doing this? So I've always had a, kind of a love for that, that narrative prompting, by stacking successes to say how, I want to do this. This is what I want to do, and let's see how far I actually got with it. So you can go down in an epic fashion and be a pulp hero, definitely, with the game. And there ain't nothing wrong. I mean, I wouldn't mind, like Scott said, if you come in and play different. The amount of settings and worlds that they have with the Savage World system, I haven't seen. I mean, it's unparalleled as far as I've seen, as far as any other game system. Maybe, aside from D&D, but I mean, as far as the genre shift, it's pretty wild. A lot of it has to do with kind of over the top play, Deadlands and whatnot, and various other systems. I know everybody's probably seen these systems out there, but the settings out there, so definitely it looks like it's well built for a one shot or a campaign. So I'd love to do that. You can put your toes in the water, various settings that are at the ready, or build your own and run somebody through it. So yeah, I enjoyed my time with it. I enjoyed Scott as the DM, the first time playing with him. And I don't know, wouldn't mind playing it myself or DM myself, but I think I think I'd like to see how Jason takes to it as a DM and see how he feels, from that vantage point. But it's really good. I had a really good time. I don't know myself, the big question about using Dark Age of Man is that the system really facilitates pulpy action, where Dark Age of Man is more of, even though it shares that narrative drive in liberties and freedom of narration, fiction, it casts you in, it's geared toward uh, pulpy action. You know, it wouldn't be stacking and trying to do these incredible movements where Dark Age of Man is like crawling through the mud and muck with you're barely surviving the eking out existence. So I mean, the original settings kind of counter to that. You know, I'm sitting here thinking about how it could be done or utilized in that fashion. But I think it's funny that you look at the system, how it would change the game. You know, I don't know. And it's interesting what Jason said about taking a system and making it more cerebral, which I know what he means by that. You know what I mean? More of a thinky type situation where you're trying to basically slowing it down. I don't know. You know, the system itself reminds me, Savage World reminds me the closest Ubiquity, you know, especially when it's playing like geez. I can't remember. It was a setting in Ubiquity that Eloy ran. Geez, where you're playing these, you're dealing with the supernatural elements, and it's on the tip of my tongue. But and you're basically a team like the Men in Black team, basically. But you know, you comprise that you got to go take out the supernatural elements. That was a blast. That was fun. And Ubiquity's built with a pulp friendly engine, you know, that drives that kind of thing. And there ain't nothing wrong with pulp. I love jumping in there. Like I think David said, like it's fish to water. Yeah, I love that. Yeah, same way I love being gritty, getting in the nitty gritty. So anyway, those are my thoughts on it. Jason, we could talk about it a little bit more, you know, whether we wanted to tweak Dark Age of Man setting. It's your primary setting. So really, you're going to be the one who really can determine that when it comes down to it. You know, well, I'm going from my vantage point, but you know, but I mean, the system itself will spawn any kind of crazy concoction that you can come up with. That's what I think is neat. You know. So anyway, I'll let you go. Ramble long enough, and I got to get to the house. All right. Take care, and I will talk to you later. Peace out.